From the Canticle of the Dragon, thus began the Age of Despair. The roads were tangled.
The winds and the sandstorms dwelt in the husks of cities.
The plains and mountains became our home.
As the old gods lost their power, we called to the blank sky.
Into the cold, dividing gray, to the ears of new gods.
The sky is calm, silent, unmoving. We have yet to hear their answer.
Their answer.
Their answer.
Their answer.
We have yet to hear their answer. Kelvin Stonewarden. Out of time, in a world between worlds. The last time we saw Kelvin, we saw you. You were tucked into a book, and that book was shut. Your life was over. It's impossible to say how long has passed since then. But at some point, that book opens up. You can feel something like air from outside of its pages, the pages that contain you, your essence. There's a bright light above you, Kelvin, and you see a hand pierce that light and stretch slowly down towards you. As you're sort of staring at the hand, I want to know, since Kelvin has been here, what has his afterlife been like? What has been his experience? What has he thought on? And what's he thinking now?
It's been one thing that he's been seeking and dreading at the same time. A lot of damn quiet. As for thinking on, considering the last bits he saw, he has an inkling that he have fulfilled his oath, but things didn't go the way he wished they did. And that's a lot to chew on. But at the same time, he's been getting ready because somebody is going to open the book and somebody is going to get to learn. But this doesn't seem like that opportunity, and he's mildly miffed.
That hand, its fingers outstretched, stretches and reaches closer and closer to you. It's a strange perspective, this giant hand thrust down through, not sky, just light coming down towards you. That stops just a few inches from you, close enough that you could reach out and touch it.
Just shaking his head with contempt, having an inkling as to what's going on, just goes, "All right, crap."
You grab the hand and it wraps around you and you feel yourself being pulled up through that light, and it's like your body is being stretched from a tiny ball into a long, lengthy thing and then snaps back together. And you find yourself standing on the top of a hill There's no sky, no stars. It's just sort of black, but the hill itself gives off light. And standing there before you is an old dwarf dressed in merchant's clothes, leaning on a gnarled wooden walking stick. And between the two of you, sort of off to the side, is this pedestal and that same book that you've been held in now for a time. And Albin Shortlock Hammerfist smiles and nods at you, and he says, welcome back, Kelvin. I hope you've been enjoying your peace and quiet.
What do you need of me, you old coot?
I don't need anything. You've already done everything. I'm very grateful for you, Kelvin. My power is not unlimited, but I wanted to give you a gift.
All right. What's this gift?
Don't sound so cynical. And he reaches into his merchant's robes and he pulls out a small mirror and he turns it towards you. And as you look into the mirror, Kelvin, you see that you're not transparent, you're solid. You don't look so gaunt and dark under the eyes. In fact, you look younger than you've looked in a long time, even towards the end of your life. You look younger and you're alive.
All right. I'm grateful, but at the same time, I have an inkling something needs to be done, old man. What do you need me for?
All I want for you, Kelvin, is to enjoy a day. A single day. The magic that gives you life, it won't last forever. But I think you deserve it after all you've done.
Okay.
So, what are you going to do with your day? Where will you go? Who will you see?
I remember a child. A child that had a series of unfortunate circumstances, but she's very important. I'd like to meet her and her parents before the mess started.
I see. Well, that can be arranged. What will you... Well, no. It doesn't matter. You do as you will, Kelvin. There's a twinkle in his eye, and he knocks the base of his walking stick against the top of that hill. And you see now in the darkness the outlines of doors, many doors, hundreds of doors. And one of them floats close and kind of drops down on top of that hill. And the door creaks open, not entirely, just a crack. And he sort of steps to the side and gestures towards it with his walking stick. I believe that will take you there. And I'm sorry for all I've put you through. I truly am.
Don't need to apologize to me, old man. You have plenty of others to apologize for. And just in a huff, just marches through the door.
You can hear his laughter chase you through that door, and as you pull the door open, it's this blinding light. It's warm. Maybe to most it would be comforting. I don't know if it's comforting to Kelvin though.
Oh no, this is the worst. This is like all this light and all this nonsense is like a constant hangover.
And whereas you were enjoying perhaps quiet before, that laughter is ringing in your ears. It hangs, it's mirthful, it's light, it's honest, but it is loud. And as that light dims, I want to move away now and return to Nightland. We're going back a little over a year before our story, May Black Roses Bloom, began. And we're going to a small cottage outside of the city of Dargard, wherein Dargard Keep looms like a giant gargoyle over the valley. And there on the edge of the woods, in this tiny cottage, it's Yuletide. It's Yuletide celebrations. And winter has come, snow blankets the ground. For a lot of people, it means hunger. It means a hard few months. But there's also those who take joy in Yuletide, who find family and warmth wherever they can. As we go into that cottage, Vashard's home, Vashard, why don't you describe for us how you imagine the inside of your cottage to look? Your wife, Miriam, is there. Your daughter, Lily, is there. I want to hear how you imagine your Yuletide celebration to look.
So I figure Vashard is coming in with today's catch as this is happening, dragging the carcass of an animal along. And as he opens the door, a cold breeze wafts in, accompanied by powdered snow. The candles and the hearth fire flicker under the wind. This cottage has basically 3 rooms, a common area where a table is now currently being occupied by various ingredients for tonight's supper, the Yuletide dinner, which is going to be a venison custard. And Miriam has already put down the wine, bowls of cinnamons, ginger, salt, prunes, dates, even a handful of eggs that Lily is bringing over one at a time, cusping them like they were the most important things in the world and putting them down slowly, gently on a terracotta bowl. As you come in, to your right is the hearth with all of the utensils, the cauldron bubbling with stew that'll be ready probably for the next morning with whatever leftovers are made tonight. Across the entrance door is the table. Beyond the table lies let's call it the master's bedroom, Miriam and Vashard's room. That we don't see right now. The door is closed and latched. To your left, beyond the table, still is a small door that leads to Lily's room. It really used to be just a kind of shed that was attached to the house that Vashard had repurposed for Lily. Her small bed covered in straw and a few woolen blankets can be seen, glanced at through the opening. There's a few dolls that Miriam helped Lily sew during the summer that can be seen sitting on that bed. And Vashard comes in with a deer, probably the last that he'll hunt for this winter, the woods of which are small but still impressive. And as he brings it in, he puts it on the ground and looks up at Miriam. Her long dark hair framing her delicate yet sort of fierce features. She's dressed in her clean dress that she calls her one black dress that is tied with a sort of half corset over her chest. And he looks at her and says, "Well, love, what do I need to cut for tonight?"
And she smiles up at you as you set down the deer and say your hellos. In the meantime, tugging at the side of her clothes is Lily, who's been helping prepare for dinner. And she just sort of shoos Lily away. She steps around the table as Lily takes off, darting around the other side. She gives you this big, toothy smile and sort of dives over the furniture in the living room and rolls over to where the hearth is. And she scoops up a little book that's right by the hearth, and she kicks up the back of her feet over her head and sits down on her stomach and cracks open the book. Her feet start dancing as Miriam approaches you, and she says, well, it's just the two of us tonight, so we don't have to take too much. I've got everything else ready, though.
All right, I'll cut enough for the both of us, and I'll leave the rest hanging. I really don't feel like skinning a deer tonight.
That's okay. Do you want to do anything special, or should we break out some of the wine that we've been holding on to, maybe?
Vashard glances over at Lily and says, she'll probably be tucked away early, I guess.
We can make that happen. And she gives you kind of a knowing smile. And she, at this point, she wraps her arms around you. She just kind of gives you a big hug and like doesn't mind that you're still probably covered in snow and cold. You can feel that her skin is warm. It was cold outside, but it's warm here. And she gives you a kiss on the side of the cheek and pulls back and just kind of looks you up and down just a little bit, her arms around your neck. And she says, how is it out there?
Cold and I don't know, disturbing, I guess. There's definitely an illness on the wind. I don't know what it is, and I don't want to let it spoil tonight's feast or our happiness together, but I definitely feel like this winter is going to be unlike the others. Harsher, perhaps.
Her smile fades a little bit, but then it grows just at one corner of her lips, and she says, you always worry so much. But thank you. Thank you for looking out for us. I'm sure we'll be fine.
I have a surprise for the little one.
Do you want to give it to her now, or?
Well, and he holds up the deer head, and is kind of cradling it in his arm. The tiny woods are probably about like 8 inches long, and he says, Lily, look, I can finally make you a helm with horns like you wanted.
And you hear the sound of her book slamming shut, and she gets up on her knees and she kind of peers over at you, and she sees the horns there. She scrunches up her face and she says, will it be like a knight's helm out of metal?
Metal is a bit hard for Daddy to work, but I can ensure that it's probably covered in metal plates. I can go with the market at some point this winter and probably have the blacksmith fit the leather skull cap with metal plates, but not too many. I don't want it to be too heavy for you.
I'm strong enough, Dad. I can do it.
I know you are, love, but you know, if I put too much weight, and I'll ruffle her hair as I say that, but if I put too much weight on that head of yours, you'll never grow tall to be a tall and fearsome knight. You'll stay a tiny little creature.
She kind of gives you a hug around your legs, still not standing up entirely. She's still on her knees, and she says, kind of, you can catch the hint of like a child's manipulation in her voice. Do you think the blacksmith would make a knight's sword for me too?
And I'll bring her up to her feet, put a hand on her head, and put another hand about 6 inches above her head. And I say, well, you're still missing this much to be tall enough to wield a sword, honey. Maybe next summer, who knows? Maybe if you eat all of your vegetables, you'll grow to be a tall, fearsome lady warrior, and then I'll get you a sword, but not before.
And she gives you a hard look, and she pulls back a little bit, and she says, I'll eat all of my vegetables if you promise.
I promise you, you will get a sword. One day.
She smiles and she puts up a hand as if to shake your hand with her tiny hand. And she kind of puts like her opposite fist on her hip. So it's a very strong, or an attempt to look strong.
And I'll
position.
clasp her elbow or forearm like a warrior's embrace.
And you can see in the background, Miriam has gone back to preparing dinner. She's kind of watching you out of the corner of her eyes and just shaking her head to the side. And as you have this brace with your daughter shaking like a warrior would, you hear rap, rap, rap at your front door.
Are we expecting guests, love?
Miriam looks back at you and she says, I didn't think so.
I don't think anyone would be wanting to travel outside in this weather. And I'll open the door.
And there you see this.
Describe for Vishard what Kelvin looks like right now. And I'll say this too, Kelvin. You do have your spell book.
Probably have a few other bits and bobs about me, but we'll get to that later.
Probably, yeah.
You see one of the taller dwarves that you've probably seen, hedging if he might like stand at full height and lift the balls of his feet just a little bit, maybe 5 foot, if he tries. Wide-shouldered, long red tunic, and a deep black cloak. Wide belt holding a rather gnarly looking leather spellbook. Also has a large pack that the cloak somewhat obscures, and probably a dagger or two that you can see just the hilts of in places. Good evening.
Hello there.
Kelvin Stonewarden, wanderer, storyteller, scoundrel, and traveler. I happened to find your cottage while trying to cross to get to the castle, but I don't think I can quite make it there this evening. Don't mind, I have a few coin, and if you'll let me stay for a little bit, wouldn't mind parting with that and maybe a couple of stories.
My good Master Dwarf, it is Yuletide tonight. I would be very, very cross if I were to ask you for anything. You're welcome as a guest in my home for tonight.
Bows, but does not uncover his head, and walks in, takes a wide, broad glance, appraising everything, seeing the definitely well cared for, well loved, but poor conditions, the fierceness of Miriam, and the happy precociousness of Lily. At that, he kind of just, thanks to the length of dwarven beards, takes a slight gulp, but no one sees it. As that's the one thing in this dark heart of his he cannot stand, is the suffering of children.
For Miriam's part, she's kind of still working in the kitchen. She does watch you as you enter, and as she works, she's kind of looking over at you here and then. Her expression is a mix of sort of wariness and also just this funny sort of interest in you. Like, who is this man who just came into my home saying he's a storyteller and a traveler, that he's going to the castle? That would probably strike Vishard as odd too.
Mm-hmm.
Not many people want to go see Lord Sauce Castle. So she's sort of watching. She does call over just once. Please, Master Kelvin, make yourself at home. Yuletide is a celebration and we are happy to share.
Pardon me, I've lost track of time. It's been a long trip. But seeing that you're making preparations and have a bit of kindness, if you don't mind something a little magical to happen, I might be able to lend a hand to this evening's festivities.
At that, Lily, who's kind of been hiding a little bit behind Vishard, like watching you from around his hip, around the side of him. She looks up at her father and she just mouths the word magic.
It seems like you already have a fan, Master Kelvin.
Well, the young haven't become so distrusting of magic.
Well, she hasn't seen magic yet. What tricks can you do?
Oh, the ones that I like using, and he starts to cast. By the dark of evening, I call upon thee to lend a hand. And with the release, all of a sudden, an unseen servant pops into existence. If you would, good lady, feel free to order this ephemera to aid you in whatever household chore you need.
And are you speaking to Miriam or to
Yes.
Lily? To Miriam.
Speaking of Miriam,
What's the? I'm curious. What's this unseen servant? What's this ghostly figure? Does it look like a person?
it looks like a more transparent ghost of a well put together house servant.
So her mouth drops and she's just kind of staring at you and at it, and then she kind of blinks her eyes and she looks around at everything she has to do, and she just got like flour all over her hands. It's actually gotten onto her clothes now as well. She just sort of shakes her head and she's like, well, if it's magic, then it can take care of the deer.
Yes, it can. Good fellow, please dress that. And goes over, immediately grabs whatever the nearest cutting tools are, and begins skinning and prepping the deer.
Meanwhile, Lily has gone to grab her book that she was reading down by the hearth, and she brings it back, and she's sort of standing between Bashard and Kelvin, who's still taller than she is. And she holds the book to her chest, and she says, so you're a wizard then?
I've been accused a number of times, yes.
Do you know any knights?
Oh, my good young lady, I know many knights.
Do you think I could be a knight if I work really hard?
He actually, takes a knee, looks her straight in the eyes, kind of narrows them, giving her a good, look over. It's not just the strength. It's not just the size. But I think you already know that. It's the oath and the measure. If you hold to that, and are fortunately enough to find someone to squire with, you will make a knight. And then
She nods her head.
up.
She nods her head very seriously. As you stand back up, she says, with looking down to the book in her hands, just like Huma. I'll be just like Huma, but she kind of gets up on her tiptoes and she looks over at Vishard. She looks up at her dad, and then she looks away kind of conspiratorially and covers her mouth. Can you use your magic to make me a magic sword? The really good knights have a magic sword.
Leans down, continuing this conspiracy because it delights him so. Magic swords, you should know, are always quested for, little one. But I'm certain before your story is done, you'll have one. Not by my hands, but by your own.
She scrunches up her face, and then you hear Miriam calling from the kitchen. She says, Lily, please get in here. I need your help. Don't bother Master Kelvin. I'm sure he would like to relax.
Oh, she's not a bother. Children are precious. And with that, he starts stomping a little bit away, and as he's doing that, just taking a look at a couple of things around the house, places that need cleaning, and mothers with a gesture and just initiates prestidigitation to start just slowly scrubbing everything nearby, keeping, as it's starting to work, just leers over at it and then makes his way back over to Lily. If you don't mind, milady, I'd like to borrow the young one. I have a feeling I need to tell a couple of stories tonight, and I'm always looking for a good audience.
Lily smiles. She seems excited, and Miriam kind of casts a side eye towards Vishard. Well, I really could use her help, but
Well, I'll help in the meantime, and then once our new servant is done, perhaps he can also help you. And
Certainly.
Master Kelvin, you'll be sitting by the hearth, I gather?
More than likely. Seems to be the right height. But I couldn't trouble you for some parchment. Right?
Looking at Miriam, do we still have a few sheets? I know I didn't use any this fall, but
I'm sure we could find some. Give me just a moment, Master Kelvin. And she sort of pulls out, there's a cabinet where there's a bunch of different supplies. It's just a mess. It's not organized at all. And she's pulling out utensils and like a little handmade cookbook. And she flips to the back of the cookbook where there's still some unfinished recipes. And in the very back, there's several completely blank pieces of paper. She kind of just very carefully tears a few of them out for you. She says, I think this is about all we can spare. Will this be enough?
That should be. Appreciatingly takes it, sets his pack down by the hearth, sits next to it, takes out his inks and his quill. And while he tells a story, he is going to transcribe the ritual elements in order to cast Unseen Servant onto these pages.
Okay.
Then, before the story's done, if everything goes right, I'm going to secret them into Lily's book.
And what's Vishard doing as Lily kind of gets down? She like crosses her legs and she's really like watching with a lot of interest what Kelvin's doing as he's telling his story. What's Vishard doing?
Vishard is probably as distracted as he could be, listening with both ears at the story, keeping an eye out on Lily just in case, because after all, this is a stranger, and absent-mindedly helping Miriam, but he's probably more of a hindrance to her at this point than actual helper.
And I think at one point, you actually like, it's the third time you've bumped into her from behind and she just turns around and she just kind of starts pushing you out of the kitchen. And she says, don't worry, between the magic, I can finish this. Just relax.
All right.
I love you.
I love you too.
She smiles and whips back around, happy to have her kitchen mostly to herself.
While they were distracted, because that was a very loving moment. Again, leans in conspiratorially, because children listen when you do that. And goes, so about your magic sword. That will come, but later you'll try to find a magic book. It's going to be a book that has a lot of tales of other knights. I'm pretty certain you are going to come across a particularly ill-tempered wizard. She cares about things, most often herself. But she'll have a book, and if you tell her that your Uncle Kelvin asked you for the book, I'm pretty certain that she'll give it. And if she doesn't, leans even closer. Tell her, if she doesn't give it to you, every rat and insect in the tower in which she resides will turn into tiny horses, and she'll never be rid of them.
And you hear an audible "ew." But she's listening intently, and she kind of giggles afterwards and says, "Is this the story you were promising me?"
No, but that's the important thing you need to remember. As for a story, well, I can see that you are a young squire at heart, if not practice. And I served with many a knight. I will tell you a little about the best two I knew. One is an old friend. The other is his son. Not by blood, but by deed and word relation. Both noble, one towards the end of his life, the other at the beginning. It was a pitched that day's battle, and we were resting by a campfire when an ambush occurred. Many men died, many more goblins, and, again, quietly, draconians fell to the blade of the noble knights. And in the rush of winning the day, the young knight truly proved himself and rallied the troops with a speech that ended with the most important of phrases: for tomorrow. For if you keep your eyes on the sun and keep pressing onward, there is always hope. And hope is a brother of love. Two forces that are most potent and can be the most destructive. Don't let anyone else tell you otherwise. Love kills dragons. It can also resurrect them. But the young knight so impressed the Golden General that she had him lead an expeditionary force onward, where I almost died if it weren't for those two noble knights saving my life from the most perilous of massive goblins and trolls. Oh, it was a glorious day's battle. Many small folk, smaller than yourself, a young kender by the name of Sergeant Sweetpine helped carry that day. A young dwarf, well, not so young, old dwarf, young at heart, the old bull, bonded with a dragon who lost his rider. They flew, saved me. The old man perished, but not before his son was able to say goodbye. I'll give you his name another time, young lady. I'm certain you'll find out for yourself if I don't get to it.
And she's listened to this story just like on pins and needles. And then when it's over, she sort of relaxes a little bit and lets out a sigh. And she looks up with amazement in her eyes to Bashard. Bashard, you've kind of been pushed into the living room, and at this point, you've overheard the story, if not what came before the story.
Probably everything after the conspiratorial tones. And I'll say, Lily, I think your mom needs you in the kitchen for just a moment.
All right. She stands up and she takes a bow, and it's a very gallant bow to Kelvin. And she kind of smacks the side of her dad's leg as she passes by, running on into the kitchen, leaving the two of you together.
And Vishard would approach Kelvin and take a seat next to him. This story is not just some fable. You speak like you were there.
I often am. His entire face slowly sours. A bit of his true age starts leaking through. Colder eyes lock on yours. This night's important. I came here to make certain that the dreams of a young girl stay lit in the dark times. It is going to be a harsh winter. Harsher than you expect. Make peace with that. Hold your family tight. Make sure that little one makes it. She's got
Lily.
a lot of work to do. Yes.
She is my everything.
Not just yours. I can't promise what will happen. Just love her, love your wife. Be the good man you obviously are. You do that, a lot of lives will be saved. I know you don't want gifts, but it takes 10 gold pieces. See yourselves through winter.
Thank you.
Thank you. Dinner should be about ready.
And you can smell it, the cinnamon and the meat, the spices. Miriam set the table for the four of you, and Lily is already seated, like bouncing up and down in her seat, ready to eat. And Miriam calls over to you, the two of you by the hearth. It's ready. Come on in. Sit down. It's Yuletide.
Thank you, Lily.
Does Kelvin take a seat? Does he intend to stay the night?
He looks at everything. He sees the fine meal, but he also sees how much of it there is. And with a bit of regret, he goes, actually, telling a good story does seem to refresh me. And I do need to keep an appointment with a certain, well, old acquaintance. So, if you'll permit me, I will take my leave. Enjoy your meal. Happy Yule. Love one another. Grabs his pack. Taps Lily's book still by the hearth, making certain that that spell is tucked away. And then straightens himself. Well, my lord, my lady, young squire, I bid you adieu.
Fare thee well, Master Kelvin.
Fare thee well. And he leaves off into the night.
As he leaves, Lily kind of protests with an "oh," but her mom shuts her up with a "shh." Maybe he'll come back. And she sits down to take her place at the table. And Bashard, you're there. You're looking at your wife, your beautiful wife, your daughter, your home that looks cleaner than it's looked in a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Smells so good. And both of them are looking up at you and smiling. Miriam just says to you, will you join us? Will you say anything for Yuletide?
I think the storyteller said everything that there could be said. Let's just enjoy a meal, enjoy time amongst ourselves, and live each day like, like the sun's never going to set.
They smile as the three of you sit down for Yuletide dinner together, and you can hear Vishard. Maybe it's from a distant neighbor, another party, but just a light and festive, a hopeful music through the windy cold of the outside world. And that's where we will leave our story, and this time as Kelvin disappears out into the night and Vishard and his family have one last Yuletide dinner. Agatha Rune Rock, you leave the dripping tunnels and the Lake of Sounds behind you, digging your way through a collapsed cave wall back to the Ivory Hills beyond. The smell of smoke and death is heavy on the air, and in the distance you can just make out over the tallest of these hills the ruined castle where the battle was fought. It's late afternoon now, and the rolling hills seem peaceful, belying the doom that you know is coming to Nightland. As Agatha reaches fresh air again and climbs her way out of the tunnels, what's she doing? What is she thinking?
I think for the most part, as she's kind of making her way through this rubble, she's already beginning a conversation with Riordan. Rook, when he'd caught up with us at the Lake of Sounds, had given the head shake, one that she recognized, and she'd wished Riordan well on his way home. But all the same, she is cursing his name and calling him a stubborn old knight, and many other colorful expressions as she makes her way through the rubble.
And you pull the last rock out of the way so that you're hit by that fresh air again, and all the sense of the outside world come back to you. And you see there, just a little bit away from this collapsed opening to the tunnel, right by where that lake was, where you saw that giant fish, a pool of blood. It's pretty substantial. And there's a pile of icy shards kind of mixed in with the blood. You don't see a body, though.
It's not snow, it's bloody sand. All right, Guppy! And she's like making her way past this lake and investigating this blood. She's looking for a trail now because bodies don't just disappear. Those bastards. They take him. Where'd you bloody go now, Riordan?
Roll me a perception check.
Okay. $18.
So you kind of pick the ice shards out of the blood, and the ice is already beginning to melt. You don't see a trail of blood moving away from this pool, and with an 18, I'll tell you, it looks like you see, basically imagine the bottom of a hill, and it rises up this grassland. The pool is right at the nook, right at the base of this hill, and you can see sort of this smear of it on the hill itself. You think that maybe whatever bled here, whomever bled here, was laid out against the hill, but you don't see a trail. You don't see drips of blood off into the wilderness. You do find it's an amulet, and it's an insignia on this necklace is basically a golden sun insignia. I think you would probably recognize it as something that Riordan wore. You probably saw him, the few times you saw him without his armor on, you would see that he wore it. So it does indicate that Riordan was here, but the amulet's the only thing of his that you find, and you kind of have to pick through the ice to find it.
And I imagine she is stubbornly kind of looking for evidence of what's happened, where the body's gone, as she finds the amulet, and she kind of takes it in her hand and squeezes it in her palm, similarly to how she had done with the bloodstone and the other stones, kind of just turning it over and feeling it smooth as she looks out towards that horizon, towards the crumbling of that castle. She knew they'd been attacked by things that could fly. Maybe he'd been carried away, but as she looks out to the ground, as you said, she doesn't see any drips, anything to indicate that it's been taken off. And she kind of slumps and sits there kind of next to one of the smears, and takes a closer look at the amulet, and then looks back out to the horizon.
You can feel,
magic.
without making a check, I'll let you know that based on your growth in attunement to magic, that's kind of just been increasing more and more ever since you came to Nightland. You get a faint feeling of magic in this amulet, and the amulet itself is some sort of artifact. It holds some kind of spell imbued in it. And as you're sort of sitting there and looking out on the horizon, a cool breeze whips down through this little alleyway, this little road that now leads to a dead-end cave-in. And as the breeze kind of blows your hair back a little bit, you see a long shadow over your shoulder cast from behind you.
And who's paying me a visit now? I'm busy.
Busy doing what? Sitting here, asking questions there are no answers to. You recognize them for.
Busy keeping promises. Somehow Step kept mine to you, it seems.
And Fistandantilus steps out so that he's kind of standing beside you. He's in his long robe now, not in his leather armor. He has his hood up over his head, so you can't really make out his face more than just a sliver of his nose. He says, I kept my promise to you too. And now here we are.
Did it turn out how you wanted it?
Of course not.
It's interesting, isn't it? You went to all the effort of bringing everyone here, and everyone got here, and still didn't turn out how you wanted.
Life is long. I've worked for a long time towards this. Do not mock my pain, please. Dedicating
What pain is it that you've
centuries.
got, Fistandantilus?
He looks down to you now, and you can see his face in the aging sunlight. You can see that there's just a hint of, it's either sadness or depression, something dark, but not angry in his eyes.
You shouldn't be surprised that she beat you to the punch.
I'm not surprised. I'm just disappointed. I tried to warn you. I tried to warn all of you. But you did not listen to me. And now here we are.
I said I'd catch up to them. But they all left. They all left, and they've all left a bloody mess. And she looks to the smear on the rock. And an amulet, apparently. You know anything about it? And she'll hold it up for him to see. I imagine whatever light is left, just kind of catches it a small amount. As magic items tend to attract light.
It does glimmer a little bit in the afternoon light, and he glances to the golden sun amulet and then down to the pool of blood. It belonged to the priestess, and then it belonged to Riordan. Now it belongs to you, I suppose.
Just another item I lost and found.
not without its merits. That one there protects against others seeing you, scrying you. Useful, perhaps, in the world we're now in.
Maybe they think to look for me, but I have a feeling they'll be thinking I went with everyone else. It's a logical thing to do, isn't it? Jump the ship as it sinks.
And yet you wish to go back to them.
Well, I kept my word. Kept it every time I've made it. Regretted it half the times I've made it. But never say anything you don't want on your grave. I guess.
For better or for worse, now, Agatha, you and I are one. A daughter without a father, and a father without a daughter. I don't wish to stay here in Nightwood either. But getting back... well, to be honest, I don't really even know where to begin.
Well, depends where you're getting back to. Right now, we've got to get back to all the people who are absolutely fucked because their planet, their world, this place is falling apart. Because the Lord is dead and the King Priest is coming.
And how will you save them?
I don't know if I plan on saving them. Just helping a bit, if I can. Because they don't know about the storm that's coming. Even if they've seen it on the horizon, they don't understand it. They don't understand that it can be caused by just one person doing one thing. Maybe it will be better. Maybe it won't. Either way, people are going to die because of this. People who had nothing to do with it. I suppose, since you're stuck with me, you're going to have to help me.
I can agree to that.
Well, I guess your other choice is to sulk in the back of my head.
I have other choices, too, Agatha. But I have a strange respect for you. Though I wish you had done more to keep this from coming to pass.
Well, maybe it would have helped if people had told me exactly what was going on. Not just what they thought I wanted to hear, not just a tiny bit that was relevant to me. The whole thing would have been nice.
He sort of gestures out towards the hills and where the castle lies beyond. He says, this world will suffer because of what's passed here. But at least you're not where they are, wherever Honoria is. At least you're not there.
Don't know, I get a second shot if I was there. She kind of adjusts the strap of the great sword. It's on her back.
Well, maybe both of us will have a second shot. But we're gonna have to travel far.
The thing I still don't understand is everyone saw her go for it. And they still took her with them. They still took her wherever they were going. Could have just left her there.
Love makes us make mistakes, makes us act against reason, even the best of us.
Should have grabbed that general before she hopped through. There's shit she could have done here. But no, they're all the way home now, or wherever they were intending on going. And we should start moving too. There's a battle going to be coming through here. We got places to be.
Where will you go?
Well, first I gotta go and check on someone. See exactly how much chaos this is all wrought. Melmane will be hit first, you know. Straight across the sea he'll come.
That will give me time to think.
Well, do me a favour and think in your own head and not in mine. I gotta concentrate on where I'm going.
There's a sliver of a dark smile on his face, and a moment later, that shadow is gone, and you're alone there between two large hills, with the cool wind coming through and the sun dipping down.
Alright, let me know when you recharge. I could do with a teleportation. And she kind of remembers there's a massive desert between her and Melmane, unless she wants to take the river, and that didn't turn out so well last time. And whilst she has proven herself able on a boat on 2 occasions, there's not quite the legacy or precedent she wants to put any faith in. And so she just begins to walk, and she will strategically choose to avoid areas of fighting, ducking and diving, using her scouting skills almost as an inverse. Rather than to spot a danger, to attack it, to ambush it, she's spotting it to avoid it, to continue to move and to move quickly. And in places when she feels strength return, she'll use her own magics to speed this up, to aid her as much as she can, because it is a long walk across the desert.
All right, we'll move ahead here a little bit. The journey to Melmane is several days of hard travel through the edge of the desert, and then miles of this long, listless, wilting grassland. During your travel, you would pass by several small bands of Lord Soth's knights or Draconians. None of them seem to engage you, even the ones that notice you, and all of them seem to be traveling quickly to the southeast, which would be the direction of the Dargard Mountains. Moving ahead to when you reach Melmane, after that long journey, I imagine you're very tired, you're probably pretty hungry. And at last you reach the city itself. It's not locked down, not yet, but when you go into the city itself, the streets have become barren, a sort of ghost town. As you walk by homes and buildings and storefronts, the citizens peer out at you through windows and doors and then shut them tightly. You can see heavily armed guards moving, patrolling the streets. They would also watch you warily, but they wouldn't accost you directly. Maybe a couple of times right when you enter the city where the patrols are heaviest, you might hear some whispers of the king priest's name or his armies. As you get to Melmane, as you reach the city, where's Agatha going? What's her goal here?
Agatha intends to go down to the docks where she last saw her father. She imagines the fishermen, having seen the state of the city now, have probably pulled their boats up onto shore, or even sent them away so they couldn't be used against the city. But she has to start somewhere, and that is a good starting place. Someone's always there.
And the docks have a little bit more presence than the streets of the city itself. Like you said, a lot of the boats have been anchored. There's not a lot of bustling traffic or people selling their wares. There's a few fishermen out, mostly on the docks themselves, not out on the boats. As you kind of walk through, people move quickly past you. They give you wary looks. But none of them seem to slow down and actually talk to you unless you actually try to grab one's attention or try to speak with one.
She'll be looking either for her father or for the guy she met last time on her way to her father. I did not write down his name if I was told one, but he was a big guy, I remember, with fish.
He was a big burly salesman and sold fish. But yeah, you didn't get his name. But yeah, you would see him. He's one of the few merchants who are actually like still trying to push their wares on the few people who are moving out and about the city. And he's got it's a much smaller catch than the last time, but he does have a large fish in his hands, and you can see him kind of accosting a pair like an older couple who are moving down the street back towards the city itself, and you hear him bellow out, "Fresh fish! Buy it now before it's too late."
Too late for what, friend?
He turns to you, and there's a flicker of recognition in his eyes, and he kind of smiles a little bit, and he says, "Before the king priest gets here, gonna need food if there's a siege."
Gonna need a lot of things if there's a siege.
"Well, I can't help with a lot of things, but I got fish. You want some?"
Afraid I'm still broke. Thought I'd find my fortune, but here I am, and I'm still penniless. And she'll hold out a hand to greet him.
And kind of tucks the fish under one nook of his arm, and he brushes off some fish grease onto his pants and then holds out his hand to shake your hand.
I do got a tip for you, though. Out there, really big fucking fish. Biggest fish you'll ever see. Can swallow 4, 5 men, one gulp of its mouth.
Lots of men tell me that story. You seen him yourself?
Sure have, and I'm not a man.
Which direction?
I'll tell you, when the city is no longer under siege, we got work to do here first.
All I gotta do is sell my fish. Try to get by. Let the soldiers worry about the city.
It's easy to think the soldiers can handle it. It's your city, you know. You'll be the first one who loses something. Soldiers get paid in wartime.
He bends kind of lower to you. What choice do I got?
Got a family?
Yeah, I got a family.
Well then, I hope you got an extended family who isn't in Malmané. Might want to start moving in that direction. Or if you don't, find a way to hunker down to make life work.
He kind of looks around, and for the first time you kind of see his kind of gruff demeanor show a hint of worry. You know somewhere safe we can go? You hear
I'm
anything?
working on it. While I'm working on it, though, I'm looking for Rufus. You seen him?
Oh, right. Yeah, you were looking for him before. You find him?
Yeah, down at the end last time. I haven't got that far yet.
Last time I saw him, that's just where he was. Where he always is. Staring out the water.
There is a place you could go in the city. It's not easy, and if your little ones are really little, you won't want to go. But there is, underneath all of this, a dwarven city. There are a few nooks and crannies that are worth tucking yourself into. Just push past the others. And she'll begin to describe the way to what she thinks of as the throne room, that safe haven in the middle before the great door that we'd gotten through with the magical stones.
He actually puts his fish down and starts to draw a map, trying to follow your directions. And he says, "This place, it's cursed, right? Everyone says it's cursed."
Looking at that horizon, I'd say this place is cursed too. You better take your chances. Decide which damnation you fancy. There is a curse to it, though. If you see a pile of glittering gold, don't go near it, don't touch it, don't be tempted by it. It is a lie, and it will kill you.
Why are you telling me this?
Well, you know, you helped me out. Gotta tell someone, right?
Well, I guess I'm gonna keep my fish then. Try to weather the storm.
Sort it up. It's gonna be a long storm.
what choice do I have? And he bends over and he picks up this large bucket full of fish, kind of hefts it between his gut and his arms.
Will you believe
Where-
one more tall tale from me?
Maybe.
And she'll come a little bit closer and kind of push up a little bit onto tiptoes to come closer to his ear. And she'll whisper, the gods are coming back. Pick a good one.
He stares at you for a long moment, and he kind of takes a step past you, and you just hear him start to... That's a good one. Almost as good as the fish.
I don't know, I've smoked your fish.
Looks over his shoulder. He says, best fish in town. You make it through the storm. Come find me.
Stay safe, friend. And she'll continue down to where she last saw Rufus a few days ago.
And you head down, and again, it's between these two tall, rickety buildings that look like maybe they're warehouses or storage areas, or once were. They're run down now, beaten by barnacles and time and water. But between the two of them, there is one of those long docks that goes all the way out to the edge of the water. And you see Rufus there. The old dwarf is sitting alone on the edge of the dock, his back turned towards you. He's wearing a grimy yellow tunic. He's taken off his oversized hat and set it down beside him on the dock, turning it upside down. And within the nook of the hat is a small box of bait and other fishing gear. You can see from this distance that he's actually still got a fishing line out into the water. He's one of the only people who are actively fishing right now, at least at this time of the docks. And there's a second fishing rod, unclaimed, resting against the wooden pole opposite of the corner where he's sitting at the edge of the dock, just a few feet away from him.
Agatha will come up quietly beside him. She dimly remembers an old dwarf telling her if you walk too loudly near the lakes, you'll scare the fish away. And although she doubts Rufus is catching much off the dock, she tries to kind of observe that, and she'll pick up the spare rod. She's never been fishing in her life, but she has a rough idea of how it's meant to work. And she takes it, she reels off a little bit of line, and she flicks it back as she's seen other people do. Only it kind of catches because she has no idea what she's doing, and the hook kind of swings past her head very briefly. All right, I wasn't ready, I take it back. And she gently puts the rod back down.
As you approach, you kind of hear him humming a tune. It's just this sort of sad, lilting tune. He doesn't hear your approach. He doesn't actually notice you until you cast the line out and it goes sailing past his vision. He's just sort of humming and staring out at the water. And then he starts as soon as you cast the line out. And as you start to speak, he takes a gasp and he looks up to you, and he doesn't recognize you for a half a moment. He's just surprised to see you there. And then he breaks wide a smile and he says, Agatha, I didn't think I'd ever see you again. 5 days. You came back just like you promised.
That's what dwarves do. Trying out this fishing thing, but I'm not sure about it, and I'm not sure it's going to be biting. This kind of day is not a good day for catching things.
Oh, that's where you're wrong, Agatha. Today's the best day. Look at the docks. We're the only ones catching.
What is it that you're catching?
Whatever the sea gives me.
I got
Peace of
word
mind.
it'll be giving you King Priest troops pretty soon.
I heard that.
Does it not worry you? Another war coming to sweep us all away again.
There's always another war, Agatha. This war or that war. This tyrant or...
That general or this general.
Aye. But a man's got to eat. People need fish.
Aye, they do. Got a friend that sells them just down that way.
Did you find what you were looking for out there? What you had to go and do?
I got done what I had to do. Not sure I found what I was looking for, though. And she'll kind of sit on the edge of the dock. She'll unbuckle her weaponry from her back and kind of roll her shoulders, trying to release some of that tension. They still kind of end up slumping forwards with a weight on them.
And he watches you as you sit down, and he looks at the fishing rod that you've got in your hands. And he smiles again, and he says, well, one of the things you're going to need, if you're going to catch a fish, is you're going to need bait. It's all about the bait. You got to treat it gentle and with respect, because it's a living creature. It might be fish food one day, sure, but that's just the way of things.
You listening to this, Fisty? Treat your bait gentle.
Fist and Dantalus does not reply.
I had it.
Rufus kind of scooches that hat that's upside down a little bit closer to you, and you can see the bait in the tackle box there, the gear. Says, there, you go and try it yourself.
These are wee monstrosities. Look at these things. And she holds up this worm, and it's like, I imagine it's like a ragworm. And so it's got like the frilly, like little frills all around it, and it's all like squirmy, and you don't know which way is up.
Well, if you want to catch a big fish, you need a big worm. Just how it goes.
Right. And she pulls the line and hook back in. And she looks at the hook and she looks at the worm, and she has this moment where she recalls a battle-torn courtyard and a sword very much just kind of skewering through the chest of someone very near and dear to her. And she's like, you know, maybe I'll just leave it to you and watch, you know, for now.
No. Come on, I'll show you. And he
Don't let the blood and dirt fool you. I'm not very good at this.
It's all right. My Agatha, she weren't very good either. He's pulled his line back in. He begins to re-hook it. Now here, you just do what I do. Just like this. And he shows you how to basically tie the worm and then with a single motion run through without pulling it open, without tearing it.
And I imagine she does sit and fish with him for a while, and then we'll slowly breach the conversation of the other dwarves and the rest of the family, where they are and what they're doing.
Is there anything she asks in particular?
I think she's trying to get a good idea for how much of a clan there is here, how many clans there are here. Building in her head the idea of not an army, but a force that can help people and try and maintain some sort of structure and keep the war from being this chaotic tide that just chews people up and spits them out, and that keeps them from being wiped out all over again.
And as this, you've had some time to fish, and you begin to kind of prod about the other dwarves. He's started to collect a pretty good pile of fish that he's gathered. You've yet to catch one at this point, and he's given you tips here and there, but none of it seems to have really come to fruition for you yet. And he nods his head and kind of solemnly says, well, it's been a long time since the dwarves around here had a clan. I've got a wife. I had a daughter. That's my clan.
You got friends?
Aye, of course. All good men do.
That's a clan. Underneath the city, I told you, I think, there's a dwarven city, an old one. And underneath other parts of this world, there are other ancient dwarven places. Places that were taken. Places that were borrowed and never returned. Dwarves are around for a long time. We're the ones the gods made right. It's our job to be the backbone when others get a little bit floppy. And she's looking at one of the fish, just still, like, flapping around. You know, I don't know what you meant about the knock on the line. I haven't felt a damn thing this whole time.
It takes time, Agatha. Just keep at it.
It's good advice. That's what we'll do. Tell me, where can I find you? I need to go and do a few things before it gets any darker.
Well, I figure I'll take your advice. Tell my friends, take my wife, go down to that dwarvish city you talk about. What about you?
Like I said, I got a couple of errands to run, but I'll be down.
What I mean is, are you going to stay here?
Where else was I gonna go?
He gives you a long look, and there's just a little bit of mist in the corner of his eyes. I don't know where you came from.
Yeah, here and there. I do work for people. I make promises and I keep them. When the promise is done, I move on to the next one. You remember, you met me. Tavern just over there. I was with a fella.
I didn't like the look of him.
No, not an attractive man.
So what then?
Well, I did what I agreed to do for him, and here I am looking for the next task, and I happen to know that things are about to get really shitty here. So, taking a bit of time off to help some people out.
Of course, it doesn't surprise me at all.
Oh, you haven't seen the sword yet. She gets really excited for a moment as she remembers that the last time she saw him, she asked him to hold her sword. And it had been the broken sword. It had been the sword that had been such a disappointment the first time she'd ever seen it. And she turns and she pulls it from its scabbard, this great sword that has been reforged and remade with part of a Dragonlance. The sword's got a whole story. But it keeps changing.
He looks very impressed. Kind of looks up and down the sword and back at you, and he says, well, I don't know much about swords, but that's a fine one.
Dwarven prophecy and Dragonlance. That's all you need to know about it. It's got an adventure to go on. I thought the adventure was somewhere else, but starting to wonder if it's meant to be here. Especially if it's like you say and no one's hanging out in clans anymore. What sort of dwarves are you?
I didn't know that there were clans anymore. You come from a clan?
Aye. It was a good one. Did proper dwarvish things like keep our promises and tell good stories and get kicked out of the pub last. We did our part for our neighbours. When the last war swept through, we did what we could. Funnily enough, clan was called Rune Rock. Strange.
He's just kind of looking at you, his face tight up. He kind of stretches an arm across the dock, palm up towards you. So are you going to stay then, this time?
Aye, at least until the weather changes. And she'll kind of give his hand a squeeze.
He squeezes back. He doesn't let go for a long time. He doesn't say anything about it, but I think Agatha would recognize that he knows. It's on his face.
Right, things to do, conversations to have. You need to go and talk to your wife and explain to her why you're leaving your very nice house for a dank and dark dungeon.
They weren't that nice of a house to begin with, to be honest.
Oh. I'm sure it was lovely. Right. Oh. Tell me, what do you know about dwarven gods?
Oh, those weren't a joke? Nothing.
Well, you're going to have a great time down there. Go and take a look at that throne. There's a statue. Lots of information written in it.
Sure, yeah, I will. You'll be there soon.
Aye. Not long.
All right, Agatha. I'll see you there.
Right. And she'll stand and she'll kind of pull him up as well. And they'll both, I imagine, collect their tools of their trades. So she takes her sword and her bow, and he'll take his rods, and they'll kind of part ways.
He's got his sack of fish that he has slung over his shoulder, and the sun is starting to set. There's no more twilight in Nightlund anymore. It's like your world in a way. Sunset, sunrise, sunset, sunrise. And he's kind of looking out at that sunset for a moment. And he looks back to you as you're walking your way down the docks. But that's where we'll end our story. And we'll see what adventures Agatha might have in the future. I'm sure she has many.
Maybe.
Snow falls from a dark, brooding sky, blanketing the land in a sea of endless and icy white. And yet, at the top of the last tower of high sorcery, the snow melts upon its approach and turns to a cool and gentle rain. The obsidian stone of the tower here has become overgrown with lush plant life, trees, yellow and pink flower blooms. Elsewhere in Nightlund, winter has come, but here it is forever spring. Bakal, you sit at the center of the tower's grove, waiting for your new companions to reach your sanctuary as they promised you 1 month ago, when the three of you survived the battle against Lord Sau's army at the edge of the desert. You can see deer and rabbits, other small animals, roam the tower. They're unaware that a war is being fought in the surrounding lands. You can see Oris, your earth elemental guardian, keeping watch over the entrance to the tower's peak. You can hear the soft, growling snores of Harp, the young golden dragon that you've been watching over for the last several months. You can hear the light dancing of flute music from wherever the centaur Kez is frolicking. Across from you sits a tall treant. Treant's name is Elthorn, and Elthorn is staring down at a dragon chessboard positioned between the two of you. You've been playing the same game of dragon chess now for a month, and it's been several days since Elthorn made his last move. Like most Treants, Elthorn is nothing if not excruciatingly deliberate. Because there's real magic here. Good magic. But you know that though the storms may have slowed down the King Priest's invasion, war is coming, and your sanctuary will not be safe forever. So as you're sitting here, Bacall, just sort of locked in this stalemate, your treant friend silent, what's going through your mind? What are you thinking about?
Because thinking about the fact that he did not find in this tower what he was looking for. He was looking for some means of escaping, some means of opposing, the king priest, and he did not find that, but he did find sanctuary and hope of escape, a spell that he could learn given time. And he's going through it in his head, the different formula, and trying to wrap his mind around it.
And there's an old magic here. This was once the home to some of the greatest sorcerers and wizards in the world many, many, many years ago. But the secrets have been lost in time, and despite your studies, you've yet to figure out the spell that would let you escape from this land. You feel closer than you were a month ago. But again, you know that time is short. There's some comfort, though. There's that gentle flute music off in the distance, and your friends here, they seem peaceful and happy. What else has Bacall been doing in this past month?
Well, after the battle, he retreated into the wilderness with his charge, and he would go out periodically to gauge the mood of the people of the land, the struggle, the strength of the forces opposing the king priest. And also, he attempted to spread hope wherever it might be needed. He would go around in animal shape, and whenever he saw somebody who needed help, who had maybe perhaps lost faith, he would try to intervene and let them know that something in the land cares for them.
The people of Nightland are scared and scattered. The war between Lord Soth and the different rebel forces that had fought him for so long, it almost seems trivial in the minds of the common folk now. That's not what's important. The King Priest's armies came south, and with them came a terrible winter, a terrible storm. Many people have died. The city of Malmene, the largest city in Nightland, fell. And the survivors have scattered to the Dargard Mountains, to Dargard Keep. Because of the winter, they've managed to hold off the King Priest's armies for a time, but there's little hope. I think Bacall is able to show hope where he walks, but when he leaves, it leaves again with him. There's not civilization anymore. There's people, families, scatterings, everyone just trying to weather the storm, both the elements and the invading army. You're here now in your sanctuary, contemplating the spell, waiting for the treant to make his move. And we're going to move to the other end of the sanctuary, the entrance to the top of the tower. Visaria, you've climbed the long black stairs that lead up from the base of the tower through a maze of mirrors and obsidian glass to the peak itself. At last, you step out through a broken mirror into the springtime grove. The smell of honey and flowers tickles your nose, and it's beautiful here. It's unlike anywhere else you've seen in Nightland. to your left is a large earth elemental in a shape that's vaguely humanoid, and it's staring down at you with diamond eyes that have sort of fogged over by the light rainfall, and you feel the rainfall now too. It does not speak or move more than to tilt its head a little bit to one side, but it is staring straight down at you.
Pleasure. I believe I was invited. And she just kind of waves vaguely at it and then shouts out, Bakal! I'm here to visit! Your friend is very large and slightly imposing.
With a groan of stone, the earth elemental shambles, not so much a step, but almost slides back a foot or two to kind of open the way forward. It still watches you with those diamond eyes. And you can see then the center of the grove through thick brush and trees. Bakal sitting down in front of a dragon chessboard, a treant much taller than him, sitting down on the opposite side, staring down at that chessboard. And as the two of you notice each other, Bakal and Visaria, I want to know a little bit more about what the past month has been like for Visaria and the Wanderers, her people.
More of the same. It doesn't matter who rules the land. The Wanderers are going to do what they want. In and out, around. It's the person in the tower, they're great. That's not who's important. It's the people. And if we can convince the people that we have value, then who cares about somebody with the name on the banner? But she knows that the king priest is going to be a problem in the future, so she's been using song and music wherever they would show up to kind of subtly sow dissent against the king priest, not in a way that would draw attention, but a lot of mocking rhyme would be easily overlooked by one who wasn't sure of what they were actually singing about or knowing about. Using nursery rhymes or small children to kind of implant the idea that there's real magic in the world and the king priest is merely a pretender and a false impersonator at that.
And as you've come to the tower to meet with Bakal, as you said you would, where are the Wanderers right now? Are they all together? Are they nearby?
A bunch of them have spread out. The family moves easily and gets together periodically, but it's easier to move silently through places if it's 2 or 3 Vardos instead of 20. And you descend and spread both accurate information and disinformation. And enjoy the chaos that erupts.
And this is what's led you here to this moment. And Bakal, you see Visaria there calling over to you. You see your Earth Elemental Guardian kind of slide out of the way, and then there she is, right at the top of right at the peak of the tower. And you see each other for the first time since the battle.
Welcome, Lady Visaria.
Lady, so informal. I do appreciate it, though. You look a lot better as a person and not an eagle, although the eagle was very impressive and very frightening. It's easier to converse this way. Your friend is very nice, and as she kind of slightly dances her way over to the dragon chessboard, she kind of leans over and then looks at the treant and says, he'll have you in Maiden too.
The treant moves for the first time in several days, and it just slowly turns its head to look at Visaria, and then very slowly its long branchy finger on its right appendage stretches out, and it just tips over its main piece in resignation, and it kind of dips its head and shakes it slowly.
This place remains pure, but for how long? The taint of the king priests.
Just means that somebody has to get more personal in his place and deal with the problem.
So perhaps our next guest will have answers for us about that.
I give it 60-40 on whether he's honest in his answers.
Those are pretty good odds. Let's find out. Sir Navem Felgard, you also reached the top of the tower. I believe you probably saw Visaria enter the tower, and you entered very shortly thereafter. In the past month, you've lost weight. You've been driven by ambition and desperation and possibility. As you reach the broken mirror and look out into the foresty grove beyond, the apex of this tower of high sorcery, you think back on all of the battles waged and lost. You think back on the past month, the time that's passed since the Red Dragon destroyed your ship and you were separated from Agatha and Averin, on your journey across the desert, and on becoming swept up in the Battle of the White Roses Castle. And everything that's happened since then, too. What I'm curious about is, what is it about the past month that Navem dwells most on now?
What he dwells on most at this point is just how much more work lies ahead. How far things have come. He always thought this would be the end, this would be the goal, you know. The end of Lord Soth would bring about the change Nightland needed, but he sees now that he was just a child thinking about that. There's so much more to do. There's so much that will need to be done to truly free Nightland, to be able to rule it properly. And he's been learning how to do that. The experiments that he's been conducting at the castle, as he's been working on it, as he travels, trying to rebuild some of the order that was lost with the shattering of Nightland. He is trying to marshal enough force, maybe not necessarily to directly challenge the King Priest armies, but at least to hold out, to keep things going long enough that he can gain the knowledge necessary to maybe not replicate what Lord Soth did, but affect a form of it, to safeguard Nightland, to make it a bastion against the King Priest once more.
And I think in your studies, in the short time that you've had, Navem, who is not an inconsiderable magic user, but perhaps delving into the deeper mysteries of magic for the first time in his life, you would come to probably recognize more than ever just the amount of power and skill that Honoria Salanthus wielded, that it took for her to do what she did. And Lord Soth himself, often seen as a boogeyman or a great enemy, a tyrant, as you're sort of reconsidering the status quo and all of the actions that have brought you here and what you have to do now just to have a chance, there's definitely a new light cast on some of these individuals that you've briefly come in contact with before. I'm curious, how does Navem dress for this meeting?
He's actually gone a little ostentatious for this, actually. The robes are of many colors that he's decided to wear. They flow down about him. There's a mantle of gray, trimmed with fur kind of around. He has gauntlets on his hands, but they're very fine mesh that kind of sparkle if any sunlight were to catch them. Not that there's much sunlight about these days, but it does provide for a nice effect at times.
So as you appear, dressed as ostentatiously as we've seen Sir Navem, you're at the top of this opening, this broken mirror that leads out to this grove, but you can't really see beyond, because as soon as you approach that broken mirror, the earth elemental steps in front of that opening. You can see it bending down and peering down through the opening with its diamond eyes, and it begins to slowly reach for you with a rocky hand.
I'm bid summoned here. You do well to remember that.
It continues to reach for you. Make me a persuasion check.
Of course. We can do that. Huh. Let's try a 22.
You can't tell what it's thinking, but there's some sort of flash of light in its diamond eyes, and it's almost grabbed onto your shoulder before its hand stops, and it pulls back out, straightens up, and it drops its arm to its side, and then it begins to slide with tiny steps out of the way and turn. And as it turns, the grove is revealed to you. All of the yellow and pink blooms. You can see a gentle springtime rain falling. It actually feels warmer here than anywhere you felt in Nightland since you left the desert. And you can see animals running about, and they're just through the edge of some brush. You see Bacall and Visaria conversing sort of in the center of this little grove.
Lovely place. A memory of what was, what should be. And I'll step through towards them, trying to look as magnanimous as possible.
And you would both be aware of his approach too. The earth elemental is loud when it moves, and so the grating of its rock would have probably caught your attention.
A peacock comes to join us. Bacall?
Welcome, Sir Navem.
Bacall. Visaria. It has been some time in meeting, hasn't it?
Yes.
How goes the war?
Poorly. But such is the way when a humble kingdom must defend itself against a ravenous empire.
You know, it's much more efficient to just remove the head of a snake.
Would that we could. I've been trying to gain knowledge of the King Priest's whereabouts, but it's proven difficult.
Really? Because my cousin's currently tracking that army. It's not hard to see.
Tracking the army is one thing, actually finding the King Priest is another.
It kind of stands out in the middle of the thing. It's a little ostentatious, even more than you are. I mean, I do appreciate the look, though. It's much better than the whole gray and black thing. That was very depressing.
Decided I'd assume some robes more befitting my station.
And I'll say that you've probably all heard rumors, even Bacall, since Bacall is kind of mingled with the people. You've heard rumors of people seeing the King Priest everywhere. It's hard to verify the rumors, not with the army, but just like appearing in random places throughout Nightland. And all of them describe him as being this figure in white robes with a radiant light that just shines off of his skin and his long, beautiful hair. Like I said, many people have seen the King Priest, but whether or not any of those rumors or which of those rumors are true, it's impossible to know.
Be that as it may, nailing him down to one place and then disposing of him still feels like something that would be beyond our current capabilities, much as I wish it was not.
I came here seeking some kind of means of opposing him, thinking there was power in this place, enough for that, but not even here. I think only the gods could smash such a man. But they love us too much.
I don't know. A very persnickety dwarf really needs to kind of decide if he's going to take one side or the other. This back and forth thing is getting annoying. But he's a decent man for a dwarf, for a very persnickety dwarf.
It would be nice, wouldn't it?
I mean, there's the other way to do it. You think about plotting against the king priest, but that's not that's the figure, the leader of an army. If you want to stop an army, you stop its kitchen, you stop its bathroom.
Require a lot of logistical work. The problem is we need people to enact these plans. Or power. I'm working on the power part, but that's going to take more time. Time we don't have currently.
Yes, and messing with time always gives me such a headache. And I throw up. Please don't do that.
Don't talk to me about chronomancy. It upsets me.
It upsets you. It makes me physically ill.
Speaking of chronomancy, I have faith that eventually in time, the land will yield new heroes to oppose the king priest.
Well, in the meantime, until the land decides to yield up the bounty, we're what they have. So how are we going to do this?
Aunt Chavia can get the job as one of the laundresses, or any one of my aunts. Do you know how easy it is, how overlooked those kind of people are in an army?
You don't think about them at all.
Not at all. You can go anywhere you want if you just carry a large enough basket of laundry. Walk into a kitchen. It would be really hard for an army to keep moving if it's struggling with the shits.
I'll at least stall it for a while. Do we have any news of the outside?
The outside?
Of outside Nightland? Are there any others like us, those trying to resist the King Priest's rule?
Many.
Anybody who'd be willing to aid us?
I'm not aware.
Aid us? Probably not. Fight against him?
Everyone
Possibly.
is scattered. I don't think the time has come yet to oppose the king priest. I am planning on a means of escaping the king priest.
I'm not looking for escape. I'm here to stay and fight. Or at least safeguard this land, my land, is going to be free of him.
It's not yours yet, Novem.
And what do you have to offer the land?
Power, guidance.
And what do you have to offer its people?
Stability, sanity.
And a dragon with 5 heads. Novem, until you learn to play with the people instead of rule them, you're going to be struggling to overcome that king priest problem that you have.
I work and I work and I work for them tirelessly. And you see what I get?
Yeah, but which of us is actually a ruler of our people? Just throwing that out there right now.
Give it time. Give it time.
Visaria, the young golden dragon harp, which is a month older now and a little larger than the last time you saw them, just wakes up with a bit of a and stretches its long neck, and it kind of looks between Bakal and Navem and you, and its gaze settles on you, Visaria. I need you to make me an insight check.
Okay. Ooh. That's gonna be good if I can do math. 18 plus 13 is 41.
31.
31.
Yeah. There's something sad in the dragon's eyes. You've never spoken to it in a way that you understand each other's language, but you recognize the look in its eyes, and it stretches its long neck and its head down towards you as if to kind of like almost like a pet would go to be nuzzled. It goes to nuzzle you.
She just reach her hand up and kind of like scratch at his head like you would behind the ear for a dog or something. I mean, she knows a dragon is more intelligent, but she's never interacted with a dragon. A dog she does.
I think with a 31, you would get the sense that the dragon thinks of you as more of the dog than
yeah, that's fine. I mean, she's okay with that. She's okay with that.
Yeah. Bakal and Navem, go ahead and roll me perception checks. Visaria, you can feel the heat of smoke through the dragon's nostrils as it kind of nuzzles you. You can hear like just a low rumble. It's just a little bit of bass that just kind of shakes in your ear as you're this close to the beast. And then it kind of pulls away and it looks back upwards towards the skies. What were your perception checks there?
17.
I got an 8.
An 8. So Navem, you noticed a couple of seconds ago the rain stopped, and you look up, just kind of following the dragon's gaze. You see that the dark storm clouds that were high above the tower have parted to reveal a purple sunset. It's something else that's changed in Nightlands since Lord Soth's fall. There's no perpetual twilight. There's no long twilight. There's sunset and sunrise, day and night, just like the rest of the world. After a moment, and you hear it first, Navem, but then you all hear the answer to it, a deep bellowing screech from somewhere on the horizon. That screech is answered by another, and another, and another, and another.
And see, I think 5 heads might be better than 1 for saving Nightland.
You do not see enough, Navem.
I am blessed with vision, as well you should know.
I know that anyone with blessed with a vision can never see their own future. And if they claim that they can, run, for what they see is false.
I don't pretend to know my future, but I know what lies ahead. And for that, we're going to need help.
Like I told you, Bakal, 60-40.
Yes. Well, you can always try to resist the King Priest. But if you lose yourself in the process, you will have no hope. There is a price to your ambition.
I paid that price far long ago.
No, I don't think you have yet. You will. And it will come at a moment that you do not expect it. And in the means and a manner that you will never believe.
We'll have to see then, won't we?
You will.
For the time being, since you are the only one who can help lead an opposition to the king priest, the land will not oppose you.
This is acceptable.
The aunts have agreed to help. Also, apparently, you're gonna get a better tailor. Because that, while it looks good, doesn't fit well. And Aunt Chaviek says she can't be seen near you with that. It's not my fault, it's what she says.
You'd think with magical robes that they would just, fit properly, but I wasn't really much of a tailor. I was more the sharp and the knife sharpener.
A good sharp knife is very useful. But, affecting a presence when you need to enter a town and convince them all of your own opinion works better when it's fitted. Robes just gives you the impression of the king priest. You want to stand somewhere apart from him, yes? We can make it a little bit fitted here, and we'll bring it in here, and she'll kind of start pinning on him,
What's really weird is when she starts doing that, the robes actually start forming to the changes.
See, and then we'll go like this, and we'll go like this, and not a double breast. You don't have the figure for it. It won't be imposing enough in here. You'll just do it, and she'll do an alternating version of an Italian single vent suit, but with long robes that kind of fall. The almost 1920s gangster style trench coat robes. So it's fitted, but you can still move in it. It still looks imposing.
Fascinating.
What do you think, Bacall? Looked like he could be a imposing authority, a figure of hope and salvation.
Perhaps hope. Probably not salvation. He'll be able to inspire those who think the way he does.
Suppose it's a start.
Yes.
And as the three of you come to some sort of accord, not necessarily all on the same page, but at least temporarily you're still aligned there. I just want to go around and find out, for Navem, what are your next steps? What do you do as soon as you leave this tower?
After leaving, he's probably going to head back to the desert to resume some of his studies at the Lake of Sounds.
And what about for Bacall? What's Bacall going to do once the others leave?
Well, realizing the fate of the land and the people that he's about to leave, or that he's going to leave eventually, in order to find a safe haven for his charge until he matures, Bacall will travel the land and try to find people, individuals that he thinks might grow into heroes like the ones he's met. And he will try to give them inspiration and guidance and groom them for the time where they will rise up.
And that's the thing about stories. It's the thing about the world of Dragonlance, is that there's always some cataclysm on the horizon. There's always some evil that has a plan to rise to power. And there are always heroes to oppose them, always. Things get bad and things get better, and things get bad and things get better again. And Bacall, you know your way forward, at least to help to ensure the future of the land. And Navem, you know your way forward, each of you believing you know what's right. Visaria, something crosses your mind before you leave the tower. It's a thought. It's a remembering of those cries in the clouds, those deep bellowing screeches. One, and then another, and then another, and then another. You know that they were the sounds of dragons, whether they were a hint at Navem's god, or actual dragons return to Nightland now that the way is open. You remember your sister's dying curse. You remember her words. Her death, your death, will come from the skies. And once you leave the tower, a thought crosses your mind. You're not sure if it's true or not. But curses can be symbolic, threats symbolic. And you know now for certain that Navem, Sir Navem, Lord Navem, represents the dragon goddess Kisis. What does Visaria think about that? And what are Visaria's next steps in Nightland?
Visaria takes a minute as she walks out the door, and she kind of smiles to herself. She knows that Bacall will be planning for heroes and retreating, and she's spread the stories of the companions near and far. Her songs are pretty well liked in certain areas, so he might find some people who are willing to step up, or at least be willing to listen. But she also knows Navem and the King Priest. And she smiles to herself because she knows that as much as Navem might be leading, desiring for this dragon, he still doesn't see the little people in front of him. He still doesn't see the laundresses and the butlers and the servants who walk around. He has high hopes and high dreams of leading a world. But if you can talk to the right people and maybe put the right suggestion in their ear, the servant that pours the wine at the dinner table is more dangerous than any knife in the back. And so she'll wander and watch. And she knows that a dragon has an eye on her. And she hopes that she can dance fast enough and far enough to get out of its way. But if what has happened, well, she's a bard, and she cheats. She stacked the deck for a little girl with a ring of wishes. She'll stack the deck for the wanderers, hiding them in plain sight, putting people where they need to be. A revolution is grand, but it isn't going to change what actually needs to happen. You need a plan after the revolution. And none of the people who are currently in charge seem to have that. So she'll leave the right aunts in the right places. The right cousins doing the right things. And if the dragon comes for her, well, she's already stacked the deck for the end game.
And each of you head off to your futures in Nightland. Nightland's story not over yet. There's plenty more adventure and intrigue and heroes and villains and rises and falls to come. But this is where our tale in Nightland ends. And I'll let the viewers' imaginations carry what comes next for Sir Navem and Bakal and Visaria and the Wanderers and the poor people of Nightland. Honoria Salanthus, you step through one of Albin Shortlock Hammersfist's many doorways, and you find yourself in a dirty alleyway of ill repute on an abandoned street in Palanthus. Above you shines twinkling starlight in a clear night sky and the glow of Kryn's 3 moons. Natari, the brightest moon of them all tonight. But even the darkness, you know this place. This is Palanthus. This is where you chose to go when you left Nightland. The street itself is still covered in rubble and stained with blood from the battle that took place here recently. And you realize immediately that not much time could have passed in this world since the moment you left it. On the other side of the street, you can see the twisted branches and trees and bramble that make up the Shoiken Grove. Beyond the grove, the Doomspire, Palanthus's tower of high sorcery, stretches upwards to look down over the city. An eerie crimson light spills from the domed window at its peak. Sometimes that light flashes brightly and changes color, but only for a moment, and then it turns crimson once again. As you take in your surroundings, what are you thinking? What are you feeling right now?
Still so angry. I'm so angry. And somewhere deep down, a little surprised that even I could be that venomous to the people that were close to me, whether or not they were tools. We spent a harrowing amount of time together doing things unimaginable. But I suppose I would try to swallow those feelings down and crush them in the heart of me, clutching to my staff. And I'd like to take a quick look at myself as well. You say not much time has passed, but to a chronomancer that means nothing.
You look just as you looked when you stood last on the edge of the Lake of Sounds. You can see your long hair with streaks of gray in it now that you've aged. You can see wrinkles on your hands. Your robes still the same, dirty, muddy, some blood on them, but still the same. Time has passed for you, but less time has passed here in the city of Palanthus. The last time you were here, a battle raged at the edge of the city. An invasion came, and you entered the Doomspire, that tower right across the street, following a black-robed figure, the wizard Raceland.
I suppose I would slowly start meandering in that direction, keeping an ear out for the sounds of war around me if the battle still rages.
Roll me a perception check.
13.
It's quiet. It's very quiet. With 13, I'll say you can't really tell how much time has passed, but you can tell that the battle's over. It even looks like some of the rubble, if there were bodies here, it looks like there were bodies here. They've been cleared away now. Maybe a day, maybe longer. You're not quite sure. As you're kind of beginning to cross the street towards the grove and look around you and take in your surroundings, you hear a voice. My dear, dear apprentice, I suppose you have a plan now that you're back. It's Raceland's voice, and it rasps out beside you. You can see that he's standing there on the edge of that street with you, his golden face mostly covered by the large hood of his black robe.
Does his voice... He's on the other side of the street. Does his voice feel like it's being magically projected to me?
He's closer to you, close enough that if it is magically enhanced, not by much.
Okay. Honoria quells the swelling bubbles of pride at finally being acknowledged as a true and proper apprentice. I wish to continue studying.
And where will you do that? Here, and he gestures with a slow, gnarled finger towards the tower across the street.
I don't look at the tower. I instead look at where he's looking as he's pointing. Does his head follow along with his hand as well, or is he watching me?
He's looking straight into your eyes.
Motherfucker. Wherever you tell me to. Is that not the role of the apprentice?
Surely you must have something you want for yourself, a way you imagined things to be.
I will be the greatest wizard ever known. Yes, there are certain things that I want, and the way that I want them to be. Why did you come back?
I'm here because of you, Honoria. Always have been.
We are no longer intertwined. Fistandantilus gone.
I'm sorry. You don't know everything quite yet, my dear.
I start walking towards him. Then explain it to me.
Rokon, you have been here in Palanthas for several days with your other companions. You witnessed the aftermath of the Battle of Palanthas, the very battle that brought you to this city when you were still a slave fighter. That was before Nightland and before you met your new family. The city was saved, but it is still deeply scarred and wounded from Lord Sauce invasion and the Blue Ladies' War. You've been here, like I said, just a couple of days. You're just starting to settle back into a world where your life isn't constantly in danger. Something a little bit closer to calm and familiar. Tonight, something in your gut has brought you on a stroll through the city to the Doom Spire. From the alleyway, you watch Honoria Salanthus appear out of thin air. You watch her step out into the street beyond. You watch her begin to speak to somebody you don't see, and then continue to cross the street. What's Rokon thinking here? What's it been like being back in Palanthas for him?
He's been trying to start again, start anew, start something with the remnants of his, what he considers his family in this time. And with glancing upon what he seems to be Noria, he gets like a flux of emotions all at once. He's confused. He doesn't know how or why she appeared out of thin air. He would have assumed that they would have all gotten there at the same time, and she chose somewhere else. He doesn't know if it's an illusion or if it's real or what.
What's he doing right now as he watches her begin to cross the street speaking?
Discerning any sort of etherealness about the situation to see if it might be an illusion or if it might be actually her.
Roll me an insight check.
Six.
You're not sure. Obviously, you feel conflicted. You have suspicions. You have questions. There's certainly something strange going on.
He'll tilt his head to one side. Honoria?
Honoria, that's the voice you hear from behind you right as you begin to step across the street, questioning Raceland as to what information he's not telling you.
Honoria struggles inwardly for a moment as she debates, even for a moment, taking her eyes off of Raceland. But hearing that voice, something tugs at her, and she does, trying to keep Raceland in her peripheral. Raccoon.
Is that really you?
It is I.
I just saw you appear. I thought you might have gone somewhere else.
I'm exactly where I need to be. I'm healthy. Yes. She looks around for the others to see if anyone else, or if it's you by yourself.
It's just me. I just had a feeling that I should walk here. I don't know if I was seeing things or Can I talk to you?
I look to Raceland.
Raceland has folded his hands into the sleeves of his robe across his chest, and he's watching you. Not Rokon so much, just you. You can see a flash of maybe something impatient in his eyes.
My face heats slightly with embarrassment, but I attempt to temper it down as though teacher is watching a student run off with another kid, extended past recess hours kind of thing. And I look to Rokon. What is it that you wish to speak of?
About what happened at the lake. There's a lot I don't understand about the whole thing, but I still care about you. You've got a place with me if you want it.
I appreciate that, Rook. It means a great deal to me. I shall keep that in mind. I hope that you have a wonderful adventuring life.
I obviously have to, do some talking with Nova and Averin and girls. But I'm sure they'll come around.
Her face gets a little kind of half smile as she looks at you.
When you stepped into the lake, and Averin, I never thought that she would do that. I have not seen that. What would have happened? It just all happened so fast.
I would have absorbed the power of the lake, Perhaps becoming the new master of that realm. Perhaps something more. Perhaps a god. And does Raceland flinch at all when I say any of that?
You hear a low sound in the back of his throat that sounds like half a chuckle. Quickly swallowed.
I will never know.
What if Rukon like moves closer, like approaching, like trying to make eye contact? What if you became a god? What would you do with that?
Being a god is more than just being a parent to many children. It is cultivating and shaping the world as you would like to see it. I would see magic restored to its full glory, the height of power. People brought in and educated.
How would you do that?
I would start a war.
What kind of a war?
Not one so different than the one that currently here. I would inspire those that wanted magic, that wanted to use it as their tool. I say, kind of glancing to Raceland for just a moment. I would make them work for those tools. And in those tools, they would shape the world around them for me and how I see fit.
What about innocent people? What about children? What about war does so much?
There is no innocence in the world. There are people that are born and they choose their path. How much better would it be if it was chosen for them? One war to end them all.
It sounds like a prison.
Sounds like a paradise.
But at what cost?
Time fluctuates. Everything we do crumbles to ash and dust. I could make something that is forever, Rook. Eternal. Imagine if these people could channel magic so that they did not die. They live forever through the weave.
If you had a second chance, would you protect those that you cared about? Or would they be the cost for your paradise?
Bit of empathy, for lack of a better expression, crosses Honoria's face. Bracone, haven't you come to realize I don't care about anyone? There's nothing in my heart except for the search for power. I have only ever been around those most of my life that sought to do me harm or trade me off like some sort of cattle. I have always been a tool at the disposal of everyone else. That is why I've sought magic. It is why, she says, clutching her spellbook, this is everything. I control my world around me. Nobody else. Not anymore.
I never thought of you as a tool, something to use. I thought of you as a friend. Maybe sometimes a friend that needed to laugh a little more. But since Riordan went, I'm seeing things a little bit differently.
She looks away despite herself, kind of a coldness coming to her eyes.
He believed in you.
He believed in Lorana.
He believed in you. And so I suppose at a great risk, I'd like to give you something.
She tilts her head questioningly, but doesn't ask anything.
And he puts his hand near his belt, takes a pouch, looks at it in his hands, and extends it to Honoria.
I take it, open the pouch, for a moment letting Raceland out of my vision, and looking to see what's inside.
Before you take a look, I want you to know that no matter what happens, you'll always have a place with me, and that everyone deserves a second chance. And then he turns his back and walks away.
Honoria will quickly walk up to you, and if you allow, she'll put a hand on your shoulder, grabbing you.
He'll turn.
But then lets you go. I'd like to make a sleight of hand check to be able to, in any place on Rook-Own, take some of... Minotaurs are furry, right?
Yes.
They're mammals.
Take a few of his hairs.
All right, this is versus Rokone's passive perception.
22.
Oh, yeah.
So you steal some of the Minotaur fur.
Mm-hmm.
And then Rokone, you turn around, you don't notice this. She touches your shoulder. Her hand's there, but just as you begin to move to look back at her, she pulls her hand away.
Thank you. And I walk back to Raceland.
I just say slowly under my breath, please remember. Remember the companions. And then walks back to where he came from.
As Rokone moves back away from the heart of the city of Palanthus, turning a street corner, Honoria, you return to Raceland, who's standing just where he was before, watching you just like he was before. You have the Minotaur's fur. You have that little bag that Rokone gave you. It is a green gem, an emerald that glows with a sort of light of its own and has swirling shapes on the inside of it. And I won't make you make a check. You recognize it as one of the 3 major gems that you found in Nightland. This is the one that was in the hilt of Hawthorne's hammer. This is the one that Averin wielded.
There's only one question that resounds in Honoria's mind, and it's just, why?
Raceland's watching you with a spark of curiosity in his eyes. And finally opens his mouth. Well, have we learned anything about ourselves?
Nothing I didn't already know.
And what is it that you want to know now, Honoria?
Why do people care? Why do they care about each other? Why? There's always going to be another.
Because they are weak. Because they are not great enough to understand what a terrible flaw compassion is. But you understand. That's why you're standing here now. Do you believe that you would have made it this far, lived this long, if you were a compassionate wizard?
No. I would still be scrubbing dishes somewhere.
And what now?
I look to the tower. An eternity. Shall we?
It's all up to you, my dear.
I start walking towards the tower.
You've entered the tower once before. As you step into the edge of the Shoikan Grove, that twisted grove radiates a palpable fear. Make me a charisma saving throw.
17.
You feel your heart begin to beat a little bit faster. Thump, 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 thump. It's beginning to press against the inside of your ribcage. You can actually feel it. And then it slows down. You center yourself. You focus your will. And you pass through. And the grove allows you to pass through until you're at the gate of the tower. It's large stone guardians, stone and something more than stone, stare down at you. They appear lifeless, but you know that they're not. They appear harmless, but you know that they're not. Raceland stands just over your shoulder, watching you impassively.
I turn to him, curious that he isn't going first into his own tower. Why me? Just simply right place, right time.
That suggests a lack of design, a level of chaos that I cannot attest to. It had to be you, Honoria.
Does he have the bloodstone anywhere on him? Visible?
Roll me a perception check.
That's a 2.
I will remind you, because I'm nice, that if you do have 3 inspiration left from the regular campaign, if you want to spend one to reroll, I'll allow you to, or you can save them all just in case.
I'm going to save them all just in case, Don. That's 100% where I'm going with that. Thanks though.
Yeah.
Super appreciated.
I'm a really nice guy. You do not see the bloodstone anywhere on him.
Which will lead to my next question. Do you have the bloodstone?
I do not.
Is he lying?
Roll me an insight check.
I'm gonna use one of those inspiration.
All right.
Absolutely. For a reroll, I guess.
You don't think so, but he does play things hard and close to his chest.
Okay. Having no reason to suspect anything foul is afoot, and he has chosen me, and it has to be me. Honoria assumes that she's special, and we'll go into the tower first.
The gate is closed. How does Honoria open the gate?
Is it locked?
Not through normal means.
Dispel magic, I suppose. Do I dare try and dispel a wizard lock by Raceland Majir? I guess if I'm trying to show off at this point, yeah, I really do. I really do.
We're gonna call this. Basically, we'll use counterspell rules. Roll me an Arcana check.
Okay, give me a moment. That's a natural 20.
The gate does not open as you dispel its magic, but you do get a flash. Your mind goes back into memory. You remember watching. You entered this tower before, but the gate was already open for you because Raceland Najir had opened it himself. And you remember then him standing in the grove turning away from him, it allowing him to the gate, the guardians standing there ready to tear him apart as they may be ready to tear you apart now, him speaking the words that open the gate. Do you know those words? Do you recall those words?
Not in this moment, no. My character might, but I as a player definitely do not.
I'm sending them to you.
Ah, of course. I am the master of past and present. I think I even said those in the first episode. Yeah. I will call out exactly that. A little fearful saying that so close to Raceland, but I'm assuming this is all part of some grandiose test of his. He does like to play games.
As you call out the words, Raceland standing behind you just over your shoulder speaks the words at the same time, in the same rhythm as you. And the gate slowly creaks and swings open. Dim magical light spills out from the tower within, and the way is open for you now.
I walk in, taking a deep breath to steady myself.
So you enter into the tower hall. You find yourself at the foot of a long stair that ascends the tower's upper floors, lit sparsely by globes of feeble magic light. Before the stairs, along a barren stone wall, are hanging 3 portraits with frames that seem to be crafted from yellow bone. Unlike before, when you were here and traveled from here to Nightland, black paint fills those portraits' canvas, covering whatever images and scenes they once depicted. On all sides of the entrance hall are time-worn statues of great wizards past, now defaced and defiled in various ways. At the peak of the stairs, crimson light spills out from what might be an open doorway or window at the very top of the tower.
Mayat Kandala. I cast Mage Armor. What is that?
What is what?
I scoff openly. Probably one of the first times daring to do so.
I don't know anything you don't know, Honoria.
We are not one and the same. As much as I would enjoy that. You are the master here. And it seems you will continue to be the master long after I am gone, I say, kind of angrily, clutching my fist. She's not old by any means, but she's probably older than Raceland now.
I mean, neither of them look as healthy as they probably once did. And such is the way of the black-robed wizard.
No idea what you're talking about. Great health plan.
He kind of walks over, wheezing a little bit to the edge of the stairs, and he looks up. He says, well, someone's here. Someone's taken residence in the tower.
Foolish. Impossible. Improbable.
And yet,
has Fistandantalus returned from the dead?
I don't know. I hope not.
We could enjoy crushing him together. A team building exercise, if you will. She says, starting to ascend the stairs, anger bubbling inside of her at someone else being here.
He laughs a little bit, just a small chuckle again, and he slowly climbs the long spiraling stairs with you, a few steps behind you, not as quick, maybe not as eager to get to the top as you. And you do reach the top of the tower and the single door that waits you there. Beyond it, red flame candles burn brightly, creating the glow you could see from even outside. Within the room is what appears to be some sort of study, but you can only glimpse a little of its mess through the doorway.
Any wards around the door? Anything that will explode or tell me to turn away if I look at it too long?
You could roll me some sort of perception check, or you could cast a spell like Detect Magic or something like that.
Probably just going to go straight perception on this.
Sure.
17.
With the 17, there's magic all around. There's arcane runes on the door all around, on the wall. But nothing, you don't see anything that makes you think that it's trapped.
Okay. I'm going to push into the room then. My heart is kind of hammering in this moment, mostly with anger. Honoria, until that moment, had believed that she was special, and now Raceland has so casually said that someone else is in the tower. That's not possible. It's not, no. And she just keeps walking.
You enter into what is a magical laboratory. Wrapping around the large room are walls of books. Scattered about chaotically on the floor are scrolls, potions, full and partial humanoid skeletons, and arcane artifacts. In the center of the room, positioned before a great domed window, is a stone desk etched with dark runes and carvings of what could be demons. Above the desk hangs, suspended loosely by ropes, the upper half of a great dragon's skull. A magnificent golden chair is also set out right behind the desk, padded by a large, soft-looking crimson cushion. And there's a figure sitting at the desk. A white-haired elf sits there wearing black robes. He would be a very attractive elf. His jawline is chiseled and nearly perfect, but for several terrible scars that linger on one half of his face. He blows out one of the candles on the desk as you approach, sets down a wet quill, and looks up at you with a sort of bemused expression. Well, this place never ceases to amaze me. Who are you, my lady? And how have you come to be in my laboratory without some terrible fate befalling you?
I see that he's still sitting. You address me by my proper title, and yet you do not stand. I'm Lady Honoria Solanthus, apprentice to Raceland Magir.
He quirks one eyebrow very high at that, but he does rise slowly from the other side of his desk. He says, well, you'll have to excuse me. I don't really go in for formalities. I'm more of a practical sort. You said you're the apprentice to Raceland Magir.
Yes. Who are you? What are you... I try to see how long this place looks like it's been worked in. He says his laboratory, but when I came here, and not that much time has passed...
You never came up to the top of the tower.
True.
So this room is new to you. However, it looks like someone or someone's have been in this room for a long time, working on many projects, half of them finished, half of them not. This is a true madhouse of magnificent wizardry. What's going on here, the spells, the formulas that are written down, the half-baked inventions, they're genius. You don't know what they are, but at a glance you can tell that they're brilliant. Whether they're all the work of this one elf, you're not sure.
Marvelous, she says, giving in to higher education and reasoning despite her anger. Simply marvelous.
As the master of this tower, I'm surprised to not know of you if you are the apprentice of such a well-known wizard. What did you say your name was?
You are the master of this tower.
I am now.
I look for Raceland, just to...
He's
He
not
was
there.
right behind me.
He's not there. Would you like to have a seat, Lady Honoria?
There must be some sort of mistake.
Well, to be honest, I expect there is. You see, I don't see how it's possible that you could be Raceland's apprentice for two significant reasons. Perhaps you would like to sit down before I explain them, but I leave it up to you.
I look at the chair in which he was sitting, and is there anywhere else to sit, or is he just being an ass?
As you look down, you see that several stools and broken pieces of other pieces of furniture or artifacts have come together to form what is a magically held together bench on the other side of the desk. It doesn't look nice, but it's there.
I will sit and entertain civility.
He sits too. Well, I'll explain my two reasons and then let you decide what happens next, I suppose. The first reason is that Raceland only ever takes one apprentice at a time, as far as I'm aware. When did your apprenticeship start?
You cannot put a time on it, for it does not exist. I could tell you that it started yesterday, and that would be accurate. I could tell you that it has yet to start, and that would also still be accurate.
But how long has it been for you, lady?
Weeks.
Hmm.
And for you, she says, catching the end of that question that he asks.
He smiles. Well, you see, I was Raceland's apprentice for longer than a couple of weeks. And just until several days ago. So there is some overlap there that's concerning, but I think the bigger issue is that Raceland Magier is dead.
Oh, fuck. I'm not going crazy, she thinks to herself. No, I was just speaking with him. That is impossible.
Oh, where were you speaking with him?
He was right behind me.
Well, I will tell you my side of the story. You see, Raceland came here. The tower opened for him just several days ago. He climbed to the peak of the tower, and he opened a portal to the abyss. I tried to stop him. I probably shouldn't have. It's not a very good apprentice thing to do, but when you find out a man wants to become a god, it makes you a little wary, even if he's your master. He stepped through the portal, and whatever he saw on the other side there, well, I suppose it gave him second thoughts. Because you see, Raceland sacrificed himself to close the portal. He never crossed back into this world. I can assure you, I am a master scryer. He is gone. And in his place, I have become master of this tower.
That is not possible. For I opened the gates, as I am the master of past and present now. You may step down.
My dear, the magics that we toy with, that we study, they are powerful. Ah, what they can do to the mind. Perhaps you need more time and training to learn how to right yourself. I can sense that you have power. You must have to be here right now. And if I am to be the master of this tower, and perhaps one day the master of the entire conclave, I suppose it's time that I take my master's way of things and offer you an apprenticeship. You can serve me and study underneath me. I would find that very interesting.
I have no knowledge of your skill. I can see by the experiments around me that you are quite learned, perhaps quick and intelligent. But you betrayed Raceland in the end. How do I know that you would not betray me? How do I know that you are worthy of being my master?
There's only one way to know, and it's not very pleasant. But you have a choice.
Here, then, I would prefer not to damage my tower.
You'd be surprised what it can survive.
I start casting.
He starts casting too. Roll me initiative. Oh boy.
Wow.
And Honoria, even though you've never met him before, being well learned about the major wizards in the world, you would know Dalamar the Dark. You would know Raceland's apprentice. You would know who this dark elf is. He's built a fairly quick reputation for himself. You're going first with an initiative of 23. What spell do you cast?
I am taking out one of my spell books, and I am casting into it, and I am using some of that hair that I pulled from Raccoon in hoping that it will work for what I need in Tensor's transformation.
Oh, this is your new spell book. Yeah, so what's the ingredient list for Tensor's transformation? Read it off to me real quick.
It says hairs from a bull, technically.
Absolutely. There's no absolutely. All right, so please, as you cast the spell, describe what Tensor's transformation looks like for Honoria.
Wow, this is gonna be pretty tacky. But she is going to change into more of a warrior type woman, and she's gonna look very much like Reardon, I imagine, almost as if she was a relative of his.
Okay.
Channeling one of the toughest warriors that she knows, and imbuing herself with Rookon's strength, she becomes the true form of the Battle Brothers in her mind.
All right. And that's your action. Do you do anything else with your turn?
I mean, with my bonus action, I guess I could strike out at him. I just need to reacquaint myself. That's right. Okay, so the only thing I have to attack him with would be one of my daggers, so I'm assuming a 9 does not hit him.
No, a 9 will miss. So you cast your spell and you rise in this new shape, this new form, a true warrior. You look not like a knight, but maybe like a hardened soldier or mercenary. You stab out with his dagger with your offhand, feeling the magical force behind your blow. He pulls his chair back. He actually leans back in his chair just enough that your dagger cuts right in front of him. And is that the end of your turn?
Actually, I get attack advantage on simple and martial weapons, and so 26 would hit.
Yes, a
Sorry.
26 will hit. That's part of Tensor's transformation.
Yes.
So you miss with the first swing, and as he leans back, you cut back, and it's that second swing you slice right into his chest. Go ahead and roll damage for me.
That's 3 piercing damage.
You do force damage. Check out Tensor's transformation.
Oh, wow. 2d12. Oh, man, yeah. Give me some of that. So that's 19.
So the second swing, it doesn't cut. It actually is just like a powerful, like psychic, magical punch to the chest. As you strike with your knife, it actually sends him flying out of his chair. His chair topples over. His body spins several times and then stops, floating in midair as he slowly starts to turn towards you.
All right. I'd like to remain as close to him as I can as well.
All right. So you get up and you pull in on him. He's going to float back with disengage. And he raises a hand underneath like this, palm up to the sky, and he casts a spell.
How far? So he's disengaged like full 30 feet, I'm assuming, because we're in a spell tower. How far away can he get from me realistically?
Yeah, it's about like 100 feet all the way around. So he's only disengaging like an extra 5 feet.
So he's not within 5 feet of me, though.
No, he's 10 feet away.
Okay.
He's kiting you, but not like he's not really kiting you, right? Like he's just moving back enough that he has space enough to cast a spell.
Isn't disengage a full action?
Not for him.
Motherfucker.
He has cunning action.
Fuck this guy.
Yeah.
Okay. Great.
So I need you to make me an intelligence saving throw.
That's 15.
Actually, I'm gonna give you this bargain.
Is this a spell saving throw?
Yes. Do you have advantage on spell savings?
On all spell saves. So it's actually 24 in total.
That's what I was gonna ask. That's what I thought. So okay. So that's gonna pass. You're just gonna take the damage. You feel for a moment all words leave your brain. You lose the grasp of knowledge of your. You lose the grasp of knowledge, all of the spells you've learned momentarily. You can't even remember your own name. You can't remember how to walk for a few moments. All of that comes rushing back to you a second later, but you do take 16 psychic damage from the Feeble Mind spell.
I take 8 psychic because I am resistant. Screw.
All right.
In particular.
And do you need to make a saving throw here for Tensor's transformation?
I believe I do because it is a.
Yep.
Roll
concentration.
20. I believe that's
you hold on to it. It's your turn.
I can attack twice instead of once when I take the okay, no. So I'm going to be attacking twice with the dagger. I have no idea if both of those are a hit or not.
They are both hits. The second one just barely.
29 damage in total.
Oh, that's such a brutal spell, especially against a wizard. So describe.
I just say yield.
So what are you doing with him?
I am like after the transformation and it goes into it, and I see that he tries to feeble mind me. Like I laugh, even though there's a terror inside of me. Like ha ha ha, that spell couldn't possibly do anything. And then I go up to him, bam. Bam, yield, and I look like I'm going to come down for like a death strike.
So as you knock him through the air, and then you knock him to the ground. You say yield. He looks up at you, and there's it's kind of charming smile on his face. It's almost roguish, the twinkle in his eye, and then he raises a finger, and then a second finger, and you hear two words splitting out of his mouth at the same time: Teratni and Cherno. And I need you to make me, unless you're going to do something ahead of time.
I can't counterspell, but since I'm close to him, and if he's casting a spell, I can use my Mage Slayer.
Yep, so you can counterattack, right? You can.
Yeah.
That's what I was going to say. So if you want to make your opportunity attack, you can do that.
Yeah, did that pop up there? It should have. No.
I don't see it in Roll20, but I know how Mage Slayer works. Oh, there we go. Yeah, that's a hit.
Yep.
So 2d12 damage.
Of course. Just enough to break the concentration, I hope, if he's trying to do a concentrated spell.
He's not. I need you to make me a dexterity. He's doing his twin cast, which is his once a day. It's one of his things. I need you to do a dexterity saving throw and a constitution saving throw. And
I have 2 points of inspiration left, right?
You do.
I'm going to use it on both of them, so it's a dexterity and a concentration, you said?
Constitution, sorry.
Constitution, okay. So 18 and 17.
His spell DC is 17. So you're going to take half damage from both of these. One is a lightning bolt. It's his left hand, and that bolt streaks out. It strikes you right in your face. You can feel it arcing through the metal armor on your body. That is a level 5 lightning bolt too, so it's at a higher level. It's going to be half that damage, so 26 lightning damage. Or sorry, that's not right. 21 lightning damage. What's that leave you at?
105.
Oh wait, that's doubled because you're wearing. Oh no, Tensors isn't actually technically metal armor.
No.
Okay, so let's roll.
But I gained the 50 temporary hit points on top of my hit points.
That's pretty epic. Yeah. Okay. The second one is 63 necrotic damage from Finger of Death from his right hand. That's going to be halved, so you will only take 31. And you lose the 50 temporary hit points.
Yep.
What's that leave you at?
Because I come back into my regular form, I'm at 24 hit points right now.
So describe how Honoria reacts to these two spells striking her right as she's about to get her victory blow against him.
I imagine just it striking her, the physical force of it, kind of like, ever seen an anime where something pushes against them and they slide backwards? That's 100% what happens. And she melts into her true form again, and she looks at him with just pure venom.
Yield, please, my lady. And he starts to stand up. It's your turn. I'll say he looks bloodied. Like he doesn't, you're not sure if he looks as bad as you feel, but he doesn't, he looks like he's taken a good beating.
So with Honoria's Wheel of Time, that takes it back to I can only cast at the end of the creature's turn, which I would have been able to do after I melded out of my form. So could I cast and then return back to Tensor's transformation?
You can try, but that means you have to remake those saving throws and possibly take even more damage.
That's true.
You did pass your saving throws, so but you can.
I'm gonna go a completely different direction though. Dativa, and I'm going to cast Mental Prison at him.
We throw that up in Zoom chat for me. What is this?
So he has to make a save. My save is 16.
What is it? Is it intelligence? Yeah. That is, I believe, a success. Yes. Success. So he takes 5d10 psychic damage, but no other effect.
No.
That's still pretty high. Describe what this does to him as he tries to resist it.
I just am focusing magical energy, not a lot of the usual flair that Honoria likes to put around her spells, because this isn't for showing off in front of her companions. This is to become the master of the tower. And it's just a single line of energy that encases his head, kind of like a crown of madness would, but instead of just sitting there, it grows tighter and tighter and tighter, trying to force him into this prison.
And you can see him grab his head. That smile, that charming smile, turns to a toothy grimace as he's shaking his head. He shakes it off for just a moment. Do you have anything else you want to do on your turn?
I am going to Misty Step behind him if I can and attempt to stealth. Because Nuatari is up and I can cast a bonus action spell as well as a
Go ahead and roll
full
me a
spell.
stealth check. It'll be versus his passive perception. Oh no.
Not this time. A strong 2.
Is that the end of your turn?
That would be the end of my turn, yes.
All right. He spins around almost before you finish rematerializing, leveling his finger. He said, I gave you a chance. And he points his finger at you and he speaks the arcane word. Again, you can see electricity sparking between his fingers. This is going to be another dexterity saving throw for you.
I'm definitely attacking him because I'm within Mage Slayer range from the Misty Step.
Yep. That's a hit.
I'm assuming 7 is not enough to do away with him.
No. But you catch him right in the guts, like underneath his rib, and as you pull back, the sparks jump out. Make me that dexterity saving throw.
That is probably not a success.
You have advantage because don't you have advantage on spells?
Oh yes, that's true. I'm also gonna counterspell this.
Oh, well, he's going to counterspell your counterspell.
I've actually already used my reaction with Mage Slayer. Never mind.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's
So
right, to do the opportunity attack.
Yeah.
So 17's enough to succeed, so you're only going to take half damage here.
And then half of that again.
And this is a level 3 normal, so this is going to be 8d6. So you'll take 15 damage.
Divided by 2 is 7. Because I still have resistance, even because of the save. Okay.
Your turn.
I am going to cast Honoria's Minor Time Sphere, since he is within 30 foot.
Is this an intelligence saving throw?
Don't think he gets a saving throw now. You made this spell.
Oh, I see. Yeah. It's if he tries to leave.
Mm-hmm.
So you've trapped him in the time sphere? With
any
you?
creature that leaves the barrier, yep. And
So the two of you are within the time sphere now.
Mm-hmm.
This sphere, everything beyond it just ceases to move. Dust motes hang in the air.
He has no idea what this spell is, though, because this is completely custom.
No,
I'm hoping just to catch him off guard.
Yeah, his eyes kind of go around. Yeah, I'll give you, roll me a deception check. If you beat his passive insight, I will give you a free spell.
No.
With a natural 1,
Reardon
he looks around,
is within
marveled. He smiles at you and he says, "Your magic's marvelous. I could learn a lot from you, but you could learn a lot more from me." He raises his finger again towards you. "One last chance, Honoria. Will you yield and be my apprentice?" And he waits.
How damaged is he looking? Do I sense anything?
Roll me a perception check. I'll tell you this. He talks a good game but with a 17, you can tell that like he's barely standing on one leg. Like he's trying to make himself look a lot better than he actually is. You can see sweat pouring down his face. You can see the vein on his forehead pulsing.
Honoria is shaken from what happened with her dear rogue friend. She's worried about not being able to succeed, but why would Raceland bring her this far, if anything else? I will be ready to counter his spell, and I say I will not yield.
All right. He casts he casts a 5th level, again, lightning bolt, a more powerful lightning bolt. So if you counter spell, I need you, or do you have a 5th level spell slot?
I do. I just took it off my sheet.
So he uses his last 5th level spell slot to counterspell your counterspell, which means you need to make an Arcana check, and he needs to make an Arcana check, and the higher check.
I also get 6 temporary hit points because it's an abjuration into my
Oh,
soul.
nice. Yes. You absorb the magic in the air.
27. That's
pretty good. All right. I'm going to roll this with the bonus so you can see exactly what it is. But it's exactly the same as yours. It's plus 13.
God,
You're very evenly
high
matched.
level. I only got that from Prodigy, I think.
Oh,
what happens now,
27. So if it's a tie, then we roll again. 2 27s in Arcana. Go ahead and give me your roll. 25. It's pretty good.
Oh, you motherfucker.
He rolls a 31. His counter spell. So this lightning arcs off of his finger towards you. You catch it in the air with your counter spell, pulling at the weave, basically trying to unravel it. And then he pulls back, and you can see that electricity bouncing, arcing from point to point to point to point. And then finally it fires right into your chest. I need you to make me a dexterity saving throw. You do have advantage on this.
Natural 20. I need you to roll really bad here for damage.
This is quarter damage of this. 7 lightning damage is the final after your natural 20 on dexterity and your half damage.
Awesome.
How many hit points are you at left?
16. Don, I'm at 16.
All right, good. Your turn.
Oh, it's only once per day. Fuck. Okay. Mensilik Callahan, and I cast Mirror Image.
He immediately casts Mirror Image.
Interesting. He cast it on my turn?
Oh, is that the end of your turn?
I mean, like, I guess it would be.
No. Yeah, if you want to do something else, you can. But that's narratively, I imagine, like as soon as you cast it, he casts it.
I use my bonus action with my dagger just to try and break his images.
Yeah, go for it.
Because this is so 19 hits, and he rolls. Rolls 6 or higher, so yeah, one of them breaks, and then
so you pop one of his mirror images.
Yep.
Right after he summons it.
Yep, and I will try to. I guess if I try to back out of melee range, that would also give him an attack of opportunity. So I stay where I am.
He smiles at you, and all of his mirror images smile too, and he says, "This has been enlightening, but I'm afraid it's time to end it, my dear." And there's something about the way he says that makes you feel uneasy. And then, Hula Mero Kena. And he brings his 2 hands together, almost as in prayer. He casts a spell.
Counterspell.
What level counter spell are you using?
Level 4.
He counterspells your counterspell.
That gives me another 8 hit points.
Roll me an Arcana check. 26 versus his 33.
Oh, come on!
He casts Banishment. And I need you to make me a Charisma saving throw.
What a guy. 16.
You feel yourself pop out of existence, and all of your mirror images pop out of existence. You're in a void, a black place. It's cold, somewhat familiar. You're not sure why. But at least for you, you're only there for a moment. You have 1 moment to do something before you get pulled back. Do you cast a spell or do you wait?
I had a potion of some sort, but I think I am mistaken. I will cast Mirror Image again.
All right. And you summon him to you. You return to the very place you were before. You don't see Dalamore the Dark there. Just the study all around you. And then something warm beneath your feet. And an explosion. And I need you to make me a dexterity saving throw against delayed blast fireball.
Oh, you were such an ass. I guess the time sphere, because it's centered on me, I guess it wouldn't matter the amount of time that's traversed. I don't want to. Sorry, I'm just trying to claw my way out of this, but 15.
A 15 is not quite enough.
Because it's a reaction, and just because I'm literally trying to hang on to every hit point that I can, I'm going to cast Shield just to bump myself up by 2 more hit points.
All right.
Shield can actually do anything to help me in this.
So you're only going to take half damage from this, but not quarter damage. You're going to take the full half damage. 49 halved is 24 fire damage.
Guess what, Don? Those 2 hit points made all the difference.
How many hit points are you at now?
2. I am at 2.
You hear a voice right behind you. You can feel Dalamar's breath on the back of your neck after the ringing in your ears starts to stop and the smoke begins to clear. The room looks undamaged, remarkably so, despite the fireball blast. And Dalamar says, "Yield." But it's your turn.
I yield.
He walks around you in a slow circle, kind of waving away the smoke. He looks you up and down. He offers you a hand.
I take
Not
it.
a bow. It's almost like a business handshake. I think this is the start of a very intriguing relationship, my lady.
Yes, master.
And at the top of the Tower of High Sorcery, we pan away from this scene, this one of Honoria's many stories, and we go elsewhere. From the canticle of the dragon, thus began the age of despair. The roads were tangled.
The winds and the sandstorms dwelt in the husks of cities.
The plains and mountains became our home.
As the old gods lost their power, we called to the blank sky.
Into the cold, dividing gray, to the ears of new gods.
The sky is calm, silent, unmoving. We have yet to hear their answer.
Their answer.
Their answer.
Their answer.
Their answer.
We have yet to hear their answer.